Let's talk a little bit about metrics, right? An area close to your heart, right? So can you talk to me a little bit about early stage businesses, right? When there's not a whole lot of data, what are some of the metrics that they should be thinking about early on in their journey, be it as KPIs or be it as milestones to start thinking about? And I'm talking B2B SaaS here, of course.
Yeah, so I mean, early stage in your journey, a lot of the metrics that we normally look at scale don't totally apply, right?
Correct.
So looking at like an LTV to CAC
Right.
probably doesn't make sense
Correct.
because you don't know what your LTV is going to look
Correct.
like. But you want to start looking at, initially it's about getting design partners who really love your product. And so I would be looking at usage retention within those design partners. How many users are adopting them? How frequently are those people logging in? What actions are they taking? Is that consistent week over week or growing week over week? Are they sharing the product with other people outside of the organization? From there, once you move into more active sales mode, you're looking at more sales pipeline metrics. So how do we build pipeline of sales-ready leads in our ideal kind of target audience? And then what's the conversion to the funnel? How long does it take to close? What's our conversion rate? When we lose the deal, why do we lose the deal? Average revenue per employee. So those are not classic like SaaS metrics. They're more go-to-market metrics. But if you're not focusing on the go-to-market at this point, you're not going to have the great SaaS metrics. And so the SaaS metrics are kind of the lagging indicator of all of the hard work you've done right now. But then, of course, you'll want to look at ultimately, how does that translate into ARR? Or, I think of it these days, given usage-based and other creative pricing models, it's more like annual revenue run rate rather than the classic ARR definition. But look at ARR, how ARR is trending over time. Specifically, how much net new ARR are you adding month over month or quarter over quarter in those early days? And then what's the gross margin adjusted CAC payback period? So how long does it take in months to pay off the cost of acquiring a new customer? Because that's going to tell you if you're at a point where you can add more and really invest in go-to-market and seeing those results that you're hoping for.
I think like you made some very kind of key points here, which is almost like there's a bunch of metrics around the product, there's a bunch of metrics around the marketing and its ability to generate leads, and then there's a bunch of metrics around the sales function and its ability to move kind of leads through the pipeline. But I guess what I'm picking up, which I think is a key piece for the early stage companies, is actually this product data around daily active usage, session times, are they accomplishing goals within the software, and that richness of data then can really inform, I guess, from that early cohort of users, is the product functioning in a way that gives you confidence to start being a bit more aggressive in sales and marketing? Because otherwise you run the risk, I guess, of investing in marketing prematurely or investing in sales prematurely when, but I guess the qualifier needs to be, that early set have to be really tightly representative of your personas, because you could get noisy data at the start, right when you don't really know your ICPs or your personas. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it needs to be, you need to be having a consistent set of customers, and they need to be using the product consistently, such that they're adopting sticky features, they're regularly using the product, they plan to stay or expand their adoption. That's going to give you the confidence to really invest more in go-to-market. And it's not like rocket science. It's probably the advice that people have had for years. I think we just got away from it in 2021, where folks said, hey, I signed up 15, 20 logos, I'm approaching $1 million in ARR, I just raised more money. My investors say, don't just hire one AE, hire two AEs. Actually, don't even hire two AEs, one's going to not work out. Hire 3 or 4.
Right.
And so folks started really aggressively going after go-to-market, often to meet the VC growth goals, and then things backfired because they actually didn't have product market fit in the first place.
And I think actually that's a key point, because actually, I'm making a pretty obvious statement here, but it's just a reminder for early stage startups that the key inflection point is every hire, 30, 40, 50, 60K, dollars. That's the cash burn. It's not around software spend, or it's not around incidentals or marketing. It's often the decision, to your point, to hire 3 AEs or 4 instead of 2. That can really accelerate the cash burn prematurely, and then you start getting into trouble, I guess. And I guess part of what I'm taking for your point too is having founders that are comfortable in their own skin enough to push back on VCs a little bit, or to to plot a journey that's a little bit more controlled or slower than the blitz kind of burn and at all cost type approach.
Yeah, so I would say yes to that. The other angle nowadays is that you can potentially have your cake and eat it too, right? And so there's a model where instead of saying we're going to hire 4 SDRs because we need SDRs to build outbound pipeline, maybe you hire 1 or 2 and then lean on automation, AI, and these next-gen go-to-market tools to really automate a lot of that kind of more like transactional SDR emails that we're getting sent. There's also some interesting AI SDR tools for the kind of time will tell how those turn out. But there's ways that you can have your cake and eat it too, where you can keep burn relatively reasonable, keep the team relatively lean, but not sacrifice growth goals in the process. And so that's where I think the magic really happens.
Right. No, that makes sense. Slight twist on that, on the next question is there, let's talk tech stack a little bit, right, for that early stage, right? So there's lots of great enterprise solutions on the market. Is there a couple of tools that you would recommend or category of tools that early stage companies should be looking at to try and, help them in these early stages? I'm not just talking CRMs, I'm talking some of these RevOps tools. Or is there anything that just strikes you that would be a good fit for some of these early stage companies?
There's so many these days. It's hard to even say all of them. But a couple like examples that I think are really interesting. One is a company called KeyPlay that allows you to get really specific about your ideal customer profile. And so it helps you not just say, hey, look, we're selling to tech companies with more than 500 employees, but you can say, hey, we're actually selling to companies that have these roles on their team. They're using these technologies. They're growing at this rate. They're in these geos. And then not just their technology, but their technology selling to other X businesses, right? And so the more clear you can get, the much clearer your messaging can be to these people. Any outbound campaigns can feel a lot more personalized. And if you dominate within a certain category, it's much easier to expand then, rather than trying to do too much all at once. And so if you were trying to deliver on an ICP-focused go-to-market, you're only ever going to be as good as the clarity around ICP in the first place. So that's an interesting tool.
Good, check that out.
Another tool that's more and more popular these days is called KeyPlay. It's a way to orchestrate a lot of your go-to-market automation plays. And so you can take that ICP and those set of accounts, identify the right buyers at those accounts, usually going to be multiple, and work on different plays towards, okay, for the buyers in these roles at these specific companies, when they do X, we're going to send them this note. And hey, maybe we'll use some AI to personalize the campaign. But you can put a lot of that go-to-market on autopilot to target accounts. And then you can reserve the people in the funnel, your AEs, your SDRs, to folks that are getting to a mid-funnel point. So once someone's landing on your website, maybe then you do heavy account research, have a really personalized note, because you know the intent is there. Right? And so I think it's this balance of automation earlier in the journey to identify your target customers and start warming them up, and then bring people in to really drive relationships with the highest value opportunities.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think what's exciting is that there's a lot of AI functionality coming downstream and even coming out at the moment that really can help with a lot of the admin and the kind of the heavy task around some of that AE SDR function, whereby they can concentrate more on higher value added part of the kind of the engagement, I guess.
Exactly. And I think the plus side of that for everyone is like, people aren't doing routine tasks like updating Salesforce constantly, sending follow-up emails, going researching on LinkedIn for the email address, and then sending an email, having it bounce back, having to find another email. Like, these were the pains that we experienced not even that long ago. And so if we're instead thinking, all right, well, we collected all these signals in the account. Here's what we think is going on. So here's our hypothesis of how we break in. I'm going to get creative around my approach to breaking in or my approach to the initial call based on what I know. So there's really going to unlock, I hope, a lot more creativity and personalization because people, that's kind of their core job now, right? That's not just a part of your job. That's your whole job. That's what you're bringing that AI doesn't do.
Yeah, no, 100% agree on that. Just to conclude, one last question, I guess. Any advice for founders out there now, right? You've got a lot of experience in the space. just talking about GTM, we've covered some of the topics, but any kind of key takeaways that you think are worth sharing to conclude today with, that top advice that you'd recommend?
Well, so one is, if you're not testing out these different tools, you're really missing out.
Right.
I think that there's some hype around some. There's some that are going to crash and burn,
Sure.
but you should be playing around with them, seeing how they can play a role in your go-to-market strategy. I think the worst thing you can do is ignore them and say, hey, these won't work.
Right.
And the other thing is that if you're building this leaner organization, right, where you're also recognizing there's a role for automation, there's maybe a role for product-led growth, there's a role for marketing, you can't say that we're building an assembly line where marketing owns leads and sales closes the leads.
Yeah.
That never really made sense to me, and it especially doesn't make sense now. We need to move away from this MQL-centric view to this model of we're looking for ICP pipeline, and there's a number of ways we can do that. Let's be kind of agnostic about what is the best way to do it in a way that converts at a high rate and is cost effective. Maybe that's dinners, maybe that's trade shows, maybe that's cold calling, maybe that's outbound campaigns, maybe that's paid ads. I don't frankly care. What I care about is, are we really orchestrating that buyer journey in a way that resonates with them, reaches the target audience, and turns them into pipeline? And I think if marketers can embrace that shift, which means not indexing on MQLs and marketing attribution, I think it's going to be better for everyone.
I think that's a great point to finish with. So Kyle, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for your time, and wishing you best of luck into 2025.
Thanks for having me.